We're going to go ahead and get started, but before we do any construction, we have to make a device to hold the rocket so that we can work on the fins and stuff. And so what we need to get is a cardboard box. The box that the rocket kit comes in is too narrow and too long. So we need to get a box about like this. This one happens to be 17 by 13 by 7. Any box about this size. The boxes that reams of paper come in are very good, and what we're going to do is make a device to hold the rocket so that we can work on the fins without it moving around. So once we get our box, we can cut off the lids or the flaps, and then on the ends of the box what we're going to do is we're going to cut a V. Doesn't have to be accurate or fancy. And we're going to get some scissors. And we're going to cut that out. I don't even have to stay on the line. And we're going to be using this box for quite a few different things. It's going to hold the rocket for the entire time. And we're going to use it to attach the fins, and then we're going to use it to put the fin fillets in place. Okay? So that's going to be able to hold the rocket. I'm going to take and put the box away because we're going to talk about some other things to get started. Okay? So the motor mount assembly is all in there. It's really strong. Last night I went and looked down inside there with a flashlight, and tapping it with the stick did a great job at making that JB weld smooth out and move around a little bit. So then we're going to get our bag of fins. Get these out. We're going to get the stuff that you have been using. Tape, which we're going to use. Pen we're going to use. The JB we're going to use. And the sandpaper and the stir sticks and our trusty piece of cardboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fins in the rocket to make sure that they're going to fit down all the way. And so I may need to slide this back and forth and tap it down. And what we want it to do is, if you can see, that this comes up to a straight line and then it begins up here on the leading edge of the fins. So this is called the leading edge of the fin. This is the tip, trailing edge, and down here from this point right here to this point right here is the root cord. Everything below this is called the fin tab. It's inside the rocket. Leading edge, tip, trailing edge, root cord, and everything below that line is the tab. So I'm going to take the fins. I might have to work them back and forth to get them to sit in here. Not sure if you can see how this is up a little bit right here. I'm going to work it back and forth and it dropped in. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take an ink pen and I'm going to draw a line on here. That's telling me that this fin is all the way down in place. So I'm going to try that on each slot. And all I'm doing is making sure that it fits down in place. We're going to draw a line. I know my next slot is a little bit big. I'm going to hold it in place. And we're going to draw a line. Hopefully that line is in the exact same place on all of them. And it is. If I drew one line, and that other line looked like this, when I thought I had it seated in there, that's telling me that something inside here is preventing it from going all the way down to the motor tube. And so what I need to do, because I can't remove the epoxy, it's already hardened, is I'm going to have to do something to the fin. On the previous video I was talking to you about knocking the corners off. Take the piece of sandpaper, hold this like a pencil, and we're going to take Whether that works or if it's a little bit too long, I'm going to have to cut the fin to match whatever issues inside that rocket tube. We're going to take the sandpaper, and if there's any rough spots or slivers or splinters sticking up, which there won't be, we'll go from there. We'll talk about the fin material. This fin is 3/16 thick, and it's actually 10 plies of plywood, or 10 plies of little plywood. And what that does is it makes it much stronger than 3-ply or 4-ply. You can see the different layers in the plywood on the leading edge and on the trailing edge. And how those were put on there was, I have a router and I made up a little fence that has a 10-degree angle on it and a little stop with the router blade sticking up through the table, and I ran these fins through that. And then I took sandpaper and sanded it all down nice and smooth, so you shouldn't have any problems. If your fin happens to be one that has a little bit of red looking material in there, well, it's called putty, and that's because I ended up with a sliver or a breakout, and I went ahead and filled it up and finished them off for you. So we're going to make sure that all three of the fins are all ready to go, and this one here actually has a little piece of the red filler in there. It's called glazing putty. It's a wood putty or an automotive putty. We're going to feel those. Everything's nice and straight and ready to go. Okay? So our fins are ready to go. The rocket body and the motor mounts all ready to accept this. I've chest fitted all the fins. And where we're going to be applying the epoxy is on the bottom of the fin tab, along the bottom here, and just up on each of the ends here just a little bit. And so what we're doing is we're gluing it to the bottom of the motor tube there, and then we're putting a little bit glue on the front here. One thing that we're going to try, and I've never done this before, is that when I have this fin in here and they're all three glued on, but not today. We're doing one fin today. We're letting it set up overnight. We're going to do the next fin the next time, let it set up overnight. Do the third and final fin, let it set up overnight. Then we're going to come back with a JB weld, and we're going to put a nice ferruling of JB weld on here. It's both structural and it's also aerodynamic. But if we look at this, we can see a little space right here and a fairly big space right up there. Well, if I try to take that JB weld and make a nice structural member and stuff on there, it's just going to drop inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to take some cotton balls, and we're going to pull little pieces of this cotton ball out, and we're going to make a little filler, and we're going to mix this with some JB weld, and we're going to fill in. And this would have JB weld on there, and we're going to make a nice place so that we seal up all those holes in there, so that when we come back at a later time and we go ahead and contour this fin, then it's not going to drip down inside. So I've never done that. I've used fiberglass, but not cotton balls. And I'll probably end up calling them popcorn balls here before the end of the video. Okay? So we got that, and I'm going to try to work with the video like that. I think you'll be able to see. I'm going to move over a little bit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have one of the slots straight up in the air. We don't want it off to the side because we're going to be doing one fin today. Let it set up, and we're going to need to make sure that this fin is perpendicular and parallel to this body tube. Well, the slots in the body tube are parallel, so we don't have to worry about our fins being non-true to the body tube. What we do have to worry about, and I'm going to move the box and we'll talk, I'm going to move the video camera and we'll talk about this once we get it all done. But what we don't want to have is we don't want to glue that fin on non-perpendicular to the body tube. And how we're going to figure that out is we're going to get down here at the end and we're going to look at it and we're going to guess what perpendicular is. We don't want it there, we don't want it here, we want it perfectly perpendicular. And so if I start off like this, I'm going to be looking at it sideways. Okay? So we're going to take this fin out and we're only going to be putting one fin in today. And so we don't need a lot of JB weld. And so we're going to take our trusty cardboard, grab a pen, and all I'm going to do is take my thumb and about the width of my thumb, and I'm doing a little bit narrower on my thumb. I'm assuming I have fatter thumbs than you do, and it's about 1 inch. And so we're just going to do a couple of 1 inch long pieces. We're going to get ready to start gluing everything. Don't need this piece of paper towel too much right now because we're going to be working on the box, or in the box. So all this stuff can move. We're going to go with the black first, just because it's usually the harder of the two, or the thicker. Top on. And then the white. Top on. I got a little bit on my finger. We're going to get rid of that right now. Stir stick. Black and white technology to gray. We're going to set that over there. We're going to go ahead and bring our cotton ball back here, and we're going to just pull some little pieces out of this. And we're not going to put it in yet, but we're just getting it ready. We're kind of making a composite, epoxy, and a material out of cotton balls. And all we're doing is to plug up some holes. So my fin's all ready to go. There's nothing sticking out of it. I know all three of my fins sit down very tight and snug against the motor tube. And so I'm going to put epoxy on the bottom of the tab and a little bit on each of the square ends. Now the size that I'm putting on there is less than the size of a piece of spaghetti. What's the other spaghetti? Angel hair? Maybe that's how much I'm putting on, or the size. Okay, we have some extra paper towels and we have our tape handy. Okay? So I'm going to set this here, making sure that the slot is straight up and down. And I'm going to slide it in tip first. And I want to make sure that I don't get too much. The line that I drew on here, I can barely see it, so I know it's sitting where it's supposed to. Okay, we're going to slide that away for a minute. We're going to come back here, and all we're going to do is take a couple of these little pieces of cotton ball, and we're going to mix them up with just a little bit of the JB Weld. And all it is cotton ball and an epoxy. Right back here, there's a little bit of a hole, and so I'm going to take this and set it right on there. And I'm going to work it down into that hole. I just don't want it to have a void there. I want to plug that up as best I can. Need a piece of paper towel. I'm going to clean the stir stick. And I'm just going to work that down in the hole a little bit. I have quite a bit of JB Weld on the cardboard tube. I'm going to get rid of that just by wiping it off. Wipe it there. Turn this over and wipe it again. So now I just filled that hole, and later we'll really appreciate the reason that I did that. And we're not worrying about what the fin's doing right now. We're going to set the fin in a minute. So we're going to come back here. We have another little piece of cotton ball. We're going to take just a little bit of epoxy, and we're going to mix up with that. That one's pretty big, so I'm not going to try to force that one down in the hole. I'm going to get another smaller piece and make another one. We've got plenty of time. I want to do this right. So now I have a very tiny piece. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to move this. So I'm just going to work it in on one side of this leading edge here. I'll take some pictures and put them at the end of the video so I can show you what I'm trying to do here. Okay, that one's done. We're going to come back. We're not going to use that great big fat guy. We've got another really tiny piece. Going to mix up some of the JB Weld with it. And then we're going to do the other side here. Getting it off the stick is the hardest part sometimes. And all we're using this for is to plug up these holes, or these gaps in here, so that the next step we do in a couple of days, it's going to go a lot easier. I'm just working it back. Then we're going to take our paper towel, making sure that we don't have any place that has epoxy on it. We don't want to wipe epoxy on it. And then we're just going to clear that off. Clear it off. And clean it off. I moved a little bit of one of those, so all I'm going to do is to come back and put it where I want it. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of the masking tape and we're going to make it about that long. About that long. We're going to make sure that the slot is straight up and down on in the rocket holder. We're going to take this piece of tape and we're going to tape this to the box. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look right down this tube, and what I want is I want that fin perfectly straight up and down. I don't want it this way and I don't want it this way. And if I need to move the fin, I can untape it, move it to whatever direction I think it needs to go, and tape it back down to the box, and then recheck it. We're going to check it from this end. We can slide this around. We can check it from that end right there. If I had a partner that I was working with, I'd have them look too, and then between both of us or all of us, we're going to get that fin straight up and down. So now at this point here, I don't want to hit the box or move it around or do anything. I'm just going to put it aside so that it can sit all by itself for tonight and be nice and dried in the morning. And we're going to do one fin we just did right now. It's going to dry tonight. The next chance I get to work on it, I'm going to go work on it and do another fin. Let it dry overnight, untape it, and do the third fin. And the fins will be able to rotate around inside the box. Once the glue sets, we don't have to worry about them anymore. And so we're done. We clean up, and this is going to take a few days. But just because that part's not being able to be worked on because the glue is drying doesn't mean that I can't work on the nose cone and stuff. And so the next segment while this is drying is we're going to be working on this. When we get ready to do this in the next video, we're going to need a drill. And I think it's 532 and 832 drill bits. Don't hold me to that. But it'll be in the instructions and on the video what size drill bits you need to continue on with this. Okay? Again, if you're not sure about what you need to do, ask before you glue it. The glue is really hard to get undone. So have your instructor give me a call.